Well, hello, Cornerstone family. I hope you guys are doing well in the Lord. I know that this season that we're in it's pretty unique, and it really invites a lot of different emotions and lots of different opportunities to think and maybe worry, but also trust in the Lord. And I also know that each of your families, have very different situations, one from another. Some of you are spending a lot more time sitting around than you like. And some of you are probably working much harder than you probably would have anticipated this time of year. So I know full well that there's just a host of opportunities to respond to what the Lord has us in. And I do hope that you're just trusting that God's got a plan, because He does. He's got a big plan, and His plans are good. And would love for you to just remind yourselves that, like, God's got good plans for you. He's got good plans for uh, your personal growth, and He's got good plans to really even possibly draw out some things in your life that need to be worked on and grown in. And so He's also got good plans for you to just to do the work of the kingdom, and He desires full well for us to grow in faithfulness. If it was a different time in history, it would be God's desire for that too. And so I have no doubt that He is using this for His purposes, and ultimately for our good. I want to take the time to update you on something. Our One of our elders, Pete Hewling, he just recently underwent double bypass heart surgery, and many of you know that. Some of you may not. He's currently recovering. He's doing pretty well. He certainly is having to deal with a lot that comes with going through recovery of a major surgery. There's a lot of emotional connections to something like that. There's obviously just a ton of physical ramifications, and I trust that the Lord is going to bring him through this in a way that helps him really just use his life all the more for the kingdom, because Pete's heart is set on that, and he most certainly wants to get back to his daily routine. But I know that God will do something with this to utilize Pete in even greater ways. One of the ways that or maybe I should say, one of the things that God has been revealing to Pete, and really I should say, this time has brought some perspective for Pete and helped him just figure out like what's life look like after recovery. And Pete has determined that now is really a time for him to step away from his role as elder of Cornerstone. And some of you might be totally shocked by that. Pete has been communicating with us about this for quite some time. In fact, so it wasn't really a shock for Tony and myself, but I totally understand for many of you, this is going to be a shock. And the reason why Pete has stepped away from this is really because Pete just really wants to concentrate and use his life in the ways that God has gifted him the best. And so I'm going to read something to you that he put together, and then I'm going to just make a couple points and share them with you afterwards. Probably a few, actually. But so here's Pete. He says, "Hi, church family. A few years ago, I stepped into the role of elder during a time of great trial for Cornerstone. I felt I felt called to step in at a time to encourage the families of Cornerstone and to take a stand that this body is worth fighting for. I believed and still believe that God has a plan for Cornerstone. I love the individuals and families who make up this church. I found myself spread thin the past year or so, and I'm not convinced that my gifting is best cut out for the role of elder. I've discussed this with Tony and Corey. In light of my recent heart surgery and the long recovery, now seems to be the time for me to step out of this role. I look forward to continuing in my other roles at Cornerstone and want to be sure that no one interprets this change as criticism of or disagreement with Tony or Corey, because that is absolutely not the case. They're both doing awesome jobs as elders. I do hope that there will be other men who will soon step into the role of elder at Cornerstone. I'm praying to that end. Thank you for the privilege of serving in this capacity the past few years, Peter. So the first thing I'd like to share, really in light of this, is uh, Pete has really just described, really over the last many months, that there are just other ways that he desires to serve, and I think that it's, you know, I think it's good for us to find our niches and find where God has best gifted us. And I think that Pete is certainly well qualified for this position and for this role, but I think he just wants to really redirect his focus and put his energy towards things that he's most passionate about. Um, he's a leader, and so he will still lead in whatever other roles that he is in. I have no doubt of that. And in fact, the Hewlings, or I'm sorry, Pete will probably uh, even just increase his commitment to the other things and really probably just be that much more fruitful and productive. So I wouldn't expect to see any less of Pete. I think that you'll just see his energies put towards things that are most that he's just most gifted to work through. And so most of you know that he's a passionate man for the nations to come to see the Lord. And so I really wouldn't be surprised if we just see him grow in his ability to help Cornerstone be more faithful in reaching the nations. And so I just really encourage you to just to look forward to what God has for him in the future at Cornerstone. Second thing I'd like to say is I completely understand that this can probably draw some concern. And the reality is this: we were three elders of Cornerstone prior to Pete's decision, and we did not have the capacity to do all that is necessary at Cornerstone and to lead in every single way that is necessary. In fact, you may remember in my last update that we were really working with our ministry leaders prior to COVID-19 quarantine. We were working with them really just to develop strategies to get in sync with one another, particularly as it pertains to our values, and really trying to just get some more people in play that can help lead the ministry efforts of our church, and so that we can be better equipped and also do a better job of equipping. We know and we recognize we've got a long way to go. We have so many ways in which our church body needs to grow in our church leadership, and we know that there's actually probably far more than we even do know. But we are seeking to make some efforts in that. And Pete stepping away from that, certainly he would make a great contribution to most anything that he puts his efforts to. And so there's no doubt that there will be some consequences of that, but we don't see this as something to really get discouraged over. We see this as an opportunity for what God is already doing just to be bolstered, and so I would just encourage you to take heart in that, and don't look at this as what's next, what's going to happen. I realize that temptation is there, and I also realize that many of you are familiar with the fact that we have weaknesses, but take heart. This is something we're seeking to overcome, and I believe that given the giftings that each individual has, including Pete, God will bring about the right people for the right roles at the right time, and we have a role in that. Undoubtedly, we have a role in that. But the reality is gifts are given, and those gifts are given by our Creator. And he's the one that gives us these things. And so we want to trust in that. And we want to believe that, okay, God's going to give us what we need. And we want to believe that he's a God that is much more capable than we are. Having said that, we still have a role to play in it. God has called us to invest in people, and to make disciples, and really to keep our eyes out for faithful people. We're called to entrust responsibilities to reliable people, and so we want to be faithful in that, and we want to grow in that as well, so that we can be a better, more faithful church body to the things that God has called us to. So So take heart. I know that this can seem like a damper, but again, this just like I spoke of at the very beginning with COVID-19, God is not surprised by this either. This was not something that God is worried about. This is something that God has a plan for. The third thing I'd like to say is Pete has been such a faithful man in this role, and he cares so much about this church. He has been so good to care about the needs of our people, the needs organizationally, and he has served quite faithfully. And honestly, uh, when somebody takes on the role of elder, the joys of it and the burdens of it are very much shared by their spouse. And so I just really encourage you guys, look out, or I'm sorry, reach out to Pete and to Karen and really just express your gratitude to them. I think that they're an honorable couple. They've been such a great example to us. They're worthy of whatever respect you give them, and they're worthy of your compliments and your encouragements. So please do reach out and maybe just even simply check in on Pete and see how he's feeling, but also maybe more specifically just to express gratitude for the ways that they've served, and maybe even encourage them in the ways that they will serve in the future. So I know that because Pete's a really humble guy and he doesn't like all the attention on him, he's gonna balk at me bringing this up in this video. But I also know full well that when honor is deserved, we ought to pay it. And so please do reach out to them. The last thing I would just like to say is please be in prayer for us. Please be in prayer for our leaders, for our elders, for our leaders, our deacons, our life group leaders, all the ways in which we are in leadership roles and serving in our church body. We need your prayers. And I know many of you are so faithful, and I thank you for that. Thank you so much for your prayers for us. But we need it. And we need it because we just really want God to be the one that builds his church. We really want God to be the one that builds his leaders and grows his leaders. And so if you guys are seeking the Lord on our behalf, we just feel like the possibility of us being successful in that is just so much better. So please don't grow weary in that. Please pray regularly and ask God to just to mature us, develop us, and help us to be more faithful in the opportunities God has given us to lead the flock of God at Cornerstone Community Church. So thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for watching this. And please do continue to encourage one another. This is a season where we need to be faithful, just to really build into one another, to really check in on each other. And, you know, if there's ways that you can meet needs, please make yourself available for that. I would just love for our church to come out of this season really strengthened. I know that there's certainly opportunities for temptation to give in to a lot of the opportunity to concern and worry, but please let's just be faithful. Let's give ourselves to one another. Let's give of ourselves, and let's be an opportunity for the world to see that we are disciples of Jesus. Take care, you guys.